All right. Welcome everyone back to Torah Tea. So much fun to be with everyone again. I definitely missed this. And I decided, before I even thought about what Torah portion that we're starting with, I just wanted to do 3 weeks of really delving into the Torah portion, but with a woman's lens, or what the feminine aspect of the Torah portion is. And literally, even after I sent it out and then I looked, I was like, oh, this week is Vayishlach, the story of Dinah. So there's this huge story right in this Torah portion that is all about women already. So that is fantastic. So I figured we would dive into talking about the story of Dinah, which is a fascinating story. All right. And again, as always, anyone's able to jump in, ask any questions, say whatever you want. I didn't send a handout in advance of this class, and I'm going to just bring it up on the screen. So we'll just all share. We'll all share it on the screen together. So I'm going to actually just start with that. And okay, I'm going to assume that everyone is familiar somewhat with the story of Dinah. Is there anyone who, oh, here comes Nancy. Is there anyone who is not familiar at all with the story of Dinah, or everyone feels like, yeah, we know what you're talking about? Okay. Oh, we got a couple people more joining, so we'll wait a second.
Hi, Dinah. This is Nancy Cherney.
Hi, Nancy. Welcome back. So good to
Thank
see you.
Yeah,
so
thanks.
Here. I've missed this.
Yes, I missed you too, but you've had something else that you needed to attend to.
I did.
I got to see older versions, but I didn't get to see the baby during the high.
Oh, okay. Well, she has a babysitter right now, so
that's great.
Yeah, another time maybe she'll get to join the Zoom. Hi, Naomi. Hi, Amy. Hi, Anne.
Hi.
Yay, fantastic. Okay.
Hey, Adina.
Hi, I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, I finally don't have a case today.
Yay, awesome. All right, welcome everyone. So I was just saying that this week's Torah portion is called Vayishlach, and it has the story of Dinah in it, which is a very famous story, Dinah and Shechem. And we are going to dive into that and really look at that from a much deeper perspective. And what do we learn from this entire story? So I'm sharing my screen with all of you, and the handout is up on the screen. If anyone wants me to email it to you after, maybe I'll put a link on the website so you can have this yourself after the class, then that is totally fine. I'd be happy to share it. Okay, and of course, like I always say, that anyone is welcome to unmute themselves at any time, ask questions, anything you want. Okay, so this week's Torah portion, Parshas Vayishlach. So I'm going to just start off with just kind of understanding a little bit of just the straight up text. That's what we have right here pulled up on the screen, is the story of what happens a little bit. This account, this is before the story of Dinah, okay? And we're going to pull out some different text from here. So Jacob, Yaakov, he was working in Haran for 20 years. And he returns to the Holy Land, to Eretz Yisrael, after his 20-year stay in Haran. And he's about to meet up with his brother, Esav, his twin brother, who was out to kill him, okay? And he sends angel emissaries ahead in the hope of a reconciliation. Oh, here comes Jolie. All right. And welcome, Jolie. So excited you're here.
Hi, sorry about being late.
Not at all. Welcome, welcome. All right, we are diving into the story of Dinah today because that's a big story in this week's Torah portion, and we're doing the Torah portion through a feminine lens, and this is a very famous story. So I'm just giving, before we even dive into that story, in this Torah portion is where Jacob is going to confront his brother Esav, and he sends messengers, they're angels in the form of men, ahead of him. And they come back and report that his brother is out to kill him. His brother Esav has 400 armed men, and they're ready to come, and he's ready for his revenge. He wants to kill Yaakov. So Yaakov prepares for war. He prays. He sends gifts to Esav, lots and lots of livestock to try to appease his brother. And that night, I'm just right over here in just kind of going through this. story right there. That night, Yaakov, he takes his family and his possessions and he crosses the Yabok River. And then he like forgets some things behind. He remains behind. He goes back to get some small things, and he encounters the angel, Esav's angel, that embodies the spirit of Esav, with whom he wrestles until daybreak. And Jacob suffers a dislocated hip, but he vanquishes the supernal creature who bestows on him the name Israel, Yisrael, which means he who prevails over the divine.
Adina, I have to ask a question.
Please.
I was always taught that the name Israel means one who struggles with God.
Yeah.
And here you're saying one who prevails, which means like wins.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's like one good word that is you struggle and then you like come out on top, because it's like both. It's like he was struggling with his angel. They were fighting all night, right? But ultimately Yaakov won. Yisrael won. And that's the story of the Jewish people, right? We are called Yisrael. We are Israel, right? So what's the story of the Jewish people is lots of persecution and struggle and hardship and all of that. But every single time, ultimately, we prevail against
All
our
right,
God.
thank you.
And that's like what Yisrael comprises, that concept. I know. I feel like in one Hebrew word, you need like a paragraph of English to try to explain it, right?
Right.
There's not one good English word to that encapsulates the struggle and the prevailing over the struggle, right? It's like the endurance and fortitude, all that. Okay. So Yaakov and Esav meet, they embrace and they kiss. Okay. So Esav has a change of heart. And they part ways. And Yaakov purchases a plot of land near Shechem, whose crown prince is also called Shechem. So he abducts and he rapes Yaakov's daughter, Dinah. Okay, and then Dinah's brothers, Shimon and Levi, avenge the deed by killing all male inhabitants of the city after rendering them vulnerable by convincing them to circumcise themselves. Okay, then Yaakov journeys on. Rachel, by the way, there's actually 3 women in this parsha, right? So there's the main story of Dinah, but Rachel dies in this parsha, and she's my middle name, while giving birth to her second son, Binyamin, and is buried in a roadside grave near Beis Lechem. I've been there. I've prayed at her gravesite. There's another, it's not in here, but in Devorah, who is the maidservant of Rivka, dies in this week's Torah portion also, as well as Rivka, I believe. So there's 4 women discussed in this week's Torah portion. Okay. So Reuven loses the birthright because he interferes with his father's marital life. Yaakov arrives in Hebron to his father Isaac, who later dies at age 180. Rebekah has passed away before Jacob's arrival. Our parsha concludes with a detailed account of Esav's wives, children, and grandchildren, the family histories of the people of Seir, among whom Esav settled, and a list of the 8 kings who ruled Edom, the land of Esav's and Seir's descendants. Okay. So now if you quickly look inside the text, so that was just sort of like an overview. If we look inside the text over here, I have the Hebrew for you. On this side, I have the English. I'm going to read it in the English, but anyone who likes to see things inside, you've got that right there. So Yaakov sent angels ahead of him to his brother Esav, to the land of Seir, the field of Edom. Okay. And he commanded them, saying, so shall you say to my master, to Esav, thus said your servant Yaakov, I have sojourned with Lavan, and I have tarried until now. And I have acquired oxen and donkeys, flocks, manservants, and maidservants, and I have sent to tell this to my master, to find favor in your eyes. The angels returned to Yaakov, saying, we came to your brother, to Esav, and he is also coming toward you, and 400 men are with him. Yaakov became very frightened and was distressed. So he divided the people who were with him and the flocks and the cattle and the camels into 2 camps. And he said, if Esav comes to one camp and strikes it down, the remaining camp will escape. And Yaakov said, O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, the Lord who said to me, return to your land and to your birthplace, and I will do good to you. I have become small from all the kindnesses and from all the truth that you have rendered your servant. For with my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become 2 camps. Now deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esav, for I am afraid of him, lest he come and strike me and strike a mother with children. And you said, I will surely do good with you, and I will make your seed as numerous as the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted because of multitude. And he commanded the first one, saying, when my brother Esav meets you and asks you, saying, to whom do you belong and where are you going? And for whom are these before you? You shall say, I belong to your servant Yaakov. It is a gift sent to my master to Esav, and behold, he himself is behind us. And he commanded also the second one, also the third one, also all those who followed the herd, saying, in this manner shall you speak to Esav when you meet him. And you shall say, also, behold, your servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, I will appease his anger with the gift that is going before me. And afterwards I will see his face. Perhaps he will favor me. So the gift passed on before him, and he lodged that night in the camp. Okay, now here is highlighted what I want you to pay attention to. And he arose during that night, and he took his 2 wives and his 2 maidservants and his 11 children, and he crossed the ford of the Yabok River. Anyone have any question on that verse?
Is Yabok River the same as Jordan River? River Jordan?
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah. Does anything jump out at you? I'm going to teach you to think the way Rashi thinks. What question?
Well,
I was just wondering, you said he has 2 wives, or is that normal back then?
Yeah, so he actually had 4 wives. Yes. According to Torah, originally, polygamy was completely allowed. So in olden day times, people would marry more than 1 wife. At a certain time in history, Rabbeinu Gershom made a decree that is no longer something that we practice, and that we are only allowed to have 1 wife. So it was like an added on later, and we keep that and observe that till today. So like nowadays, no, it's not okay for a man to have more than 1 wife.
Okay, so
Was it like a
Sorry.
sister wife type thing where all the wives like knew each other, or were they all like separated?
No, well, these ones, they all knew each other. So 2 of them, Rachel and Leah, were twin sisters.
Oh, wow. Okay.
2 twin sisters.
So the DNA would be identical then for the kids. That's interesting.
Yeah, there was a lot of, I mean, at the beginning, the Jewish people were just the Jewish people, right? Let's see, Debbie, you have a question? Go ahead, Debbie.
What jumps out at me is the fact that they're crossing the river during the night.
That's what I was going to say. At night. Why at night?
And what I see
Yeah.
is that he took only 11 children. I thought he had 12.
Well, you're talking about like the 12 tribes?
Not yet.
Yeah. Did
So
he take
Benjamin
Dina?
wasn't born yet. One of them
Oh.
wasn't born yet.
Oh, Benjamin wasn't born yet?
He
Yeah,
couldn't have
but
been
you're
born
onto
yet
it.
if Rachel was still alive to be taken. So she died in childbirth.
Right. So one of the tribes are not born yet, but you're still on the right path. He still had 12 children.
He didn't take Dina.
Okay. So there you go. His 11 children, but he had 12 at that time, right?
Right. He didn't take the girl. He took all the
So
boys.
where is Dina? What's going on with Dina? Just to answer your question though, Debbie, why at night? I don't know offhand. I can look inside a chumash. I'm just assuming that that was just part of part of, he did 3 things to set up with his meeting for Esav. He prepared for war, he sent gifts to appease him, and he prayed to God. And I think that might have just been part of the preparing for war, preparing for the strategy of, I don't know, now we move forward.
He left under cover of darkness. He had maybe he felt more protected that his brother couldn't see what was going on.
Right. That would be my
What's the
guess.
chapter and verse of that verse? I'll look online and see if I have a commentary.
Okay. All right. So this is the question that Rashi asks. And here you have it. Here, I'll bring it up a little bit more. You have it again, both in the Hebrew and in the English. Rashi's commentary, his 11 children, but where was Dinah, right? So now you see in the parentheses there, Benjamin was not yet born, but Dinah should have been counted. So what do we know? So what do we hear about Dinah? Rashi tells us he put her into a chest and he locked her in so that Esav should not set eyes on her. Therefore, Yaakov was punished for withholding her from his brother, because had he married her, perhaps she would cause him to improve his ways, and she fell into the hands of Shechem. Okay, and that's from Midrash from this pasuk. Okay, so what Rashi's telling us, where was Dinah? She was there, but it wasn't counted almost, because we learned from this that Dinah was put in a box, because Yaakov knew that, or Yaakov was worried that if Esav saw Dinah, he would want to marry her. And the truth is that and we're going to go into this, but Esav, right, was a wicked person, but Dinah actually had the capacity to improve Esav, to make Esav a better person. But anyways, Yaakov was worried that Esav would marry Dinah, and so he put her in a box, and because of that, he was punished, and she fell into the hands of Shechem. So we're going to now go into that story. So right over here, and this is again highlighted because that's something interesting to focus on, or something that we are going to focus on. Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had borne to Yaakov, went out to look about among the daughters of the land. And Shechem, the son of Hamor the Chivite, the prince of the land, saw her, and he took her. He lay with her, and he violated her. And his soul cleaved to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob. He loved the girl, and he spoke to the girl's heart. And Shechem spoke to his father Hamor, saying, "Take this girl for me as a wife." Jacob had heard that he had defiled his daughter Dinah, but his sons were with his livestock in the field, and Jacob kept silent until they came home. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Jacob to speak with him. And Jacob's sons had come from the field when they heard, and the men were grieved, and they burned fiercely, because he had committed a scandalous act in Israel to lie with the daughter of Jacob, and such ought not to be done. Okay, so now Rashi's going to stop on, again, this verse up here. Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had borne to Jacob. Does anything jump out at you to ask a question? Anyone want to figure out what Rashi's question is?
Well, it says that Dinah is the daughter of Leah. She's actually and then it says whom she had born to Jacob. It's like Jacob didn't have a part of her life. It was, you should pardon this expression, it was just like the sperm donor. and Leah was the influence in Dinah's life, not her father.
All right. So I would say that some of that is definitely on the right track, but that is Rashi's question, is, right, why does it say Dinah, the daughter of Leah? Because typically in the Torah, when it counts, like, it says someone and it says the daughter or the son of, it says their father's name. So Rashi stops here and he says the daughter of Leah and not the daughter of Jacob. Okay, so here's why, a little different than Tessa's reason of why, but however, because of her going out, she was called the daughter of Leah, since she, meaning Leah too, was in the habit of going out, as it is said, and Leah came forth toward him. And we're going to talk about what does that mean? What is this referring to? And concerning her, they devised the proverb, like mother, like daughter. So if you've ever heard that line, like mother, like daughter,
yes.
That we actually get this right here in the Torah from Leah and from Dinah. Because Leah was in the habit of going out, and if you actually want to switch the words around, I would say it's outgoing. We're going to talk about that. And Dinah inherited this from Leah, that she was also outgoing. Okay, and that's why if you see, just scroll at the top in Hebrew over here, it says Vatetse Dinah bas Leah, and Dinah, the daughter of Leah, went out, and then like mother, like daughter, because that is the theme of what we're learning about from.
But Adina, there's not an implication here that they were somehow loose or that they made themselves available in the community, but rather that they were outgoing social people. They like to go spatziering.
Yes. Wait, is that a question or
yes, the question is, so there's no is there an implication here that there was someone toward behavior with the mother and the daughter, and that's how they are alike, or that they were both just very social people who like to be in the world?
Okay, so that's a great question, because like I always say, right, if you look at the Torah at face value and you don't go deeper, then I would have more questions than answers, and I would be more appalled than comforted, right? So you're absolutely right. If you would just look at this at face value, if you look at the story of Dinah and Shechem, and there are many people that would maybe even explain the story this way. It's like, yeah, Dinah was kind of out there and promiscuous or whatever. She ventured out. Who knows? Maybe she brought this upon herself, right? Like, and the same thing with Leah. You could look at them at face value and make that first assumption, but we learn absolutely not. No, like this was a positive thing, and we're going to keep learning about it. What was Dinah's personality like, and what was Leah's personality like, and how it was actually really such a positive thing that we have to learn from. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Because there's a tendency to veer toward the negative in that, in the way it seems. So
right. I think that there would be people that would look at it at face value and come up with that negative. I say that that's a complete mistake, right? That's why I don't know how to learn Torah without Chassidus, without the mystical dimension, without the Kabbalah. Okay. All right, hold on one second. Let me just do one quick thing here. Okay. So we are back to, right. So now we have that original question from Rashi about where was Dinah, why she knew that she was in a box. And then we have here, why was she the daughter of Leah and not referred to as the daughter of Yaakov? And because of a certain quality and character trait that she inherited from her mother. So let's go deeper. The Rebbe's insight. Okay, so this is from one of the Rebbe's talks right here. Do you want to read that for us, Anne? And yeah, Molson.
Oh, and Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she bore to Yaakov, went out to see the girls of the land. Rashi comments, the daughter of Leah and not the daughter of Yaakov, because of her going out, she was called the daughter of Leah, since she too was in the habit of going out, as it is said, and Leah came forth toward him. And concerning her, they devised the proverb, like mother, like daughter. It seems like this needs an explanation. Why did Rashi specifically comment in this way, implying that the Torah came to disgrace Leah when we previously learned that Torah does not even disgrace an animal? Furthermore, in Rashi's commentary on the verse, the mention of the righteous is for a blessing. He states that whenever one mentions a righteous person, he should bless him.
Okay, and just to jump in there where it says the Torah does not even disgrace an animal, I'm pretty sure that's referring to in the Torah portion of Noah, when it talks about the animals that Noah brought onto the ark, right? And he was told, it says that he brought 7 of every pure animal, every kosher animal, and 2 pairs of every, instead of saying impure animal, it says not pure. So in order to say not pure, einena tehora, right? And the word for impure is tameh. So einena tehora has 8 more letters than the word tameh, if it just would have said tameh, which is impure. So there we stop and ask, why would the Torah, which is so exact, and there's a reason for every single detail, why would it use 8 extra letters to just, when it could have just used less? And we learn from there about the power of our speech, right? Instead of saying bad, say not good. So that idea. So if we're even going to be just so careful about animals, and how much more so with people. So here, it seems as though, right? It seems as if it's disparaging, but it can't be, right? We're like that, it can't be. So let's see what's really going on here. So classic question, why does Rashi comment on Dinah's actions in a manner that seemingly shames both Dinah and Leah, which is exactly Jolie's question, right? Is it's talking about them being sort of inappropriate, go out there in a way that they shouldn't be. So one possible answer, by stating that the tendency to go out was inherited from her mother, we can remove the blame from Dinah, saying that it is not her fault that she inherited this trait. Okay, so one level, maybe we could say, okay, so it's not Dina's fault. She just got it from her mother. But that doesn't really sit so well because then we're still putting down Leah. Okay, so this is continuing from the talk of the Rebbe. Do you want to read this part for us, Jolie?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
So starting with we can't say?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. We can't say that the purpose of commenting this way is in order to lessen Dina's shame and through that vindicate her by saying that it wasn't her fault, rather that she was the daughter of Leah, who was in the habit of going out, because we, the Torah, do not vindicate the daughter by publicly shaming the mother. Well, that's interesting. Yeah.
Right? So that could be one possible answer, but the Rebbe's not satisfied with that because no, then we're just saying Dina's okay. She just got that from her mother, but her mother's where this like negative trait came from. And I just want to point out, because Robin put on the chat that maybe they were both extroverts, and that is absolutely correct. They were both extroverts, and we're going to talk more about that. Okay, so here we have that quote, right? Ein makom lilmod zchus al habas al yidei pirsam gnusa shel Leah. The Torah does not vindicate one by shaming another. So that can't be, that's not a satisfying answer as to why the Torah would talk like that. Okay. Tessa, do you want to read this next part for us?
We therefore must conclude that with this idea that Dinah was called the daughter of Leah, the Torah is telling us that just as it is obvious that Leah's going out was considered a good thing, Dinah's going out was also considered something commendable. Rashi does not feel the need to specify that this was a good thing because it is already explained in a previous comment.
Okay. So here's what we know so far. So we some things that we know about Leah, and this is also from previously, and some things that we know about Dinah. So we know that Leah did not want to marry Esav. Okay, this is from a previous Torah portion. And things we know about Dinah, that her father, right, Yaakov, did not want her to marry Esav because he put her in a box that night that they're crossing the river. So here, where do we see from Leah not wanting to marry Esav? There's a verse in a previous parsha, and Leah's eyes were tender. And Rashi comments there and says, because she expected to fall into Esav's lot, and she wept because everyone was saying, Rebecca has 2 sons, Lavan has 2 daughters, the older daughter for the older son, the younger daughter for the younger son, right? So Leah grew up with everyone saying Leah should marry Esav and Rachel should marry Yaakov, right? So now Leah was crying all the time, thinking like, I don't want to marry this Russia, this evil person. I don't want to marry Esav. And so her eyes were like red and puffy. And the verse says her eyes were tender. Okay. And where do we go? Okay. So over here with Dinah, how do we know that Yaakov didn't want her to marry Esav, right? We just read that before. And Yaakov, took his 2 wives and his 2 maidservants and his 11 children. And Rashi says, and again, we have it here, what about Dinah? He put her into a chest, locked her up so that Esav wouldn't set eyes on her. Because of that, he was punished. Okay, what else do we know about Leah? She did not hesitate to go out, especially for something important to her. Okay, so where do we know this from? When Yaakov came from the field in the evening, and Leah came forth toward him, and she said, you shall come to me. This is from last week's Torah portion. And God hearkened to, this week's Torah portion. And God hearkened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Yaakov a 5th son. Right? Is that's this week's Torah portion?
Yeah.
Correct me. Yeah. Okay. And Rashi says, and God hearkened to Leah that she desired and was seeking means to increase the number of tribes. Right? So she was like coming out for a good reason. She was like, I'm coming to greet my husband Yaakov because I want to have more children. Right? They were going to be together on it. I want to have more children. I want to add to the number of tribes. So it's a positive reason that she was going out. And where do we know about Dinah that she did not hesitate to go out? Naomi asked, did Yaakov have any other daughters besides Leah? Leah was his wife.
No, besides Dinah, I meant, yeah.
Okay, so actually each of the tribes were born with twin sisters. Some of them were even had like two triplet sisters. So yes, he actually did have many other daughters, but the we don't know much about them. Because the Torah is not a history book, although sometimes I wish it was, because I'm fascinated by all the things we don't know. But it's not a history book. It just tells us what we need to know as lessons for our life or whatever it is. So we know about Dinah. Okay, so about Dinah, she did not hesitate to go out. Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had borne to Jacob, went out to look about among the daughters of the lands, right? So that's how it started when Dinah was like venturing out into Shechem, where Shechem, and then where the Shechem, the place, where then Shechem, the prince, came and raped her, abducted her and raped her. So Rashi says over here, the daughter of Leah, again, right, and not the daughter of Yaakov. Why? Why not the daughter of Yaakov? However, because of her going out, she was called the daughter of Leah. We said this already, since Leah too, was in the habit of going out, right? So we have Leah came towards him. We're talking about coming towards Yaakov to greet him at the end of the day. Her intention for that was kind of like this excitement to have another child and to increase the number of tribes. It was a positive outgoing or going out. Same thing here with Dinah. So, and what do we know about Rachel? And actually, I don't know if it said this explicitly, but Dinah, it said she was going out among the daughters of the land, meaning she was going out in the city of Shechem to kind of meet with the other girls and have a positive influence on them. Right? So that's where her going out was for a positive sake. She was an extrovert. She wanted to have a positive influence on the other women where they were.
Yeah, women's circle.
Yes, exactly. So that's what Dinah was doing. She's like, I'm just going to go make a women's circle. See if anyone wants to join my Torah and Tea. Yeah.
Adina, she's a young girl. Could there be, I don't want to sound negative, but having raised a teenage daughter, that there might have been just a little rebelliousness in her, and she wanted to go out, like go into town and see what everybody was doing. Because her mother, by walking out to the field, and if I remember last week's Torah portion, Leah actually demands that that Yaakov sleep with her that night. Again, that hint of rebelliousness. So maybe that's also another twist.
That's when the story where Reuven, her son, went to go get flowers, right?
The mandrake roots, yeah.
Like meaning Rachel said to Reuven, I'll give my night with Yaakov to Leah in exchange for these flowers. So when she's saying she's demanded her night, it's like she's saying, oh, it's my night. Like I'm going to go out to Yaakov because I get this night now.
Okay.
Right. So, but what you're saying about Dinah, could there be, I would say again, like if we were just going to like make our own interpretations and look at this at a very surface level, that's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah. On a Peshat level, she's a rebellious teenage girl.
Like someone could make the mistake of thinking that. And that's why we're so lucky to delve deeper and to be in Torah and Tea, where we could realize that is just an error in our way of thinking. Because if I didn't have, right, the wisdom of deeper Torah and deeper Torah knowledge, then yeah, I could just be like, oh, Dinah, I mean, listen, this is like already modern day waters, right? But people talk about, well, if something happens to a girl, did she bring it on herself by how she dressed? Did she bring it on herself by how she behaved? And some people go that way. And some people say, what are you talking about? She doesn't bring anything on herself. She's being her. What's done to her is horrific. It doesn't matter what she's doing, right? So it's almost like saying, well, Dinah, you went out, you got what's coming to you. But really, her intentions were very pure. Her intentions were, I want to go and have a positive influence on the people around me.
Adina, can I ask a question, please?
Of course.
Is it a leap to think that had she married Esau, that she would have changed him?
No, it's not a leap. We're going to get there. She would absolutely have changed him.
Okay.
She would have.
Question about the corollary to the daughter of Leah, whom she had borne to Jacob, went out to look about among the daughters of the land. Is there anywhere in the Torah that admonishes the women should not go out to look about in the society? Is there some commandment that keeps a woman in her home that this is then violating?
Okay, so that's similar, I think, to what Adrian asked in the chat. Like, was she supposed to stay locked in? Like, it makes it sound like a woman can't leave her house. Now,
Was there some other, in other words, is this in contrast to something that's already been written?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I think it has more to do, as far as I know, with like the time period. You have to also understand where, like, it's like women's protection was their brothers or their father or their husband once they got married, right? So like, it was a dangerous thing for a woman to just, it's like we think like, oh, what, like, was she supposed to stay locked at home? She should have freedom. She should just go out. But like, no, that actually wasn't really a safe thing. It wasn't like for her own safety. I think, you know, when Rachel was by the well, right, tending to Laban's sheep, we raise a question there, like, why is Rachel out at the well with the sheep? Everyone else were men being shepherds. But because Laban didn't have any sons, he made his daughter do it, right? So it's like the idea there that it's just not so safe for a woman to be out and about on her own without the protection of her brother or her father or her husband in that time period or in those times.
So it's not an admonishment in the Torah, it's an explanation of circumstances that she then was vulnerable to the dangers.
Right.
Not just because that is what happens. Like if you were to say to me, you know, if you go out at night, you're vulnerable to dangers now. It's not comparable because it's different, but it's a similar kind of a thing.
Right. Again, at surface level, it looks like an admonishment. It looks like Dina's at fault.
Right.
And it looks like she probably was, you know, looking for trouble. Right. And I want to tell you that none of that is true.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question, Adina.
Yes.
You know how when someone is sick, you say Misha Berach and you say their name and then their mother's name.
Yeah.
Rather than the father's name.
Yeah.
Could it be that Dina was the daughter of Leah because she had ended up being raped by this man that she needed healing?
That is so interesting. I've never ever seen that explanation anywhere.
All right.
I think that the reason the question is here is because generally in the Torah, people, when it says someone, it says, you know, the daughter or the son, it's their father. But yes, actually we very often use, I mean, like for when you name someone and when you, do a mishaberach for them. And when you, anyone, like, any prayer for anyone, it's their mother that we use. So here it's just strange because it's different than what's normally, right? But like versus, there's just different times when you would usually use the mother's name, other times where you usually use the father's name. And this time stands out because usually in this scenario, this kind of verse, you would use the father's name. But that's a very interesting,
I just wondered, I mean, if it happened after the fact that she was named Dina, daughter of Leah.
Well, it's actually before the fact. That verse is
so it doesn't apply.
Right. I mean, right. I've never heard of that explanation, but I think it's a fascinating one just to think about. Okay. Things we know about Rachel. She was perfectly beautiful, but Rachel had the verse says Rachel had beautiful features and a beautiful complexion. Okay. So that was Leah, Dina, Rachel. So we see clearly here these comparisons, right, between Dina and Leah. Okay, so now to explain, let's see. Do you want to read that for us, Barbara?
To explain, Rashi explained previously in our Parsha on the verse, and he took and his 11 children, stating, and where was Dina? He took a box and hid her inside so that Esau would not lay eyes on her. Therefore, Yaakov was punished for hiding her from his brother because she may have succeeded in changing him for the better, and she fell into the hands of Shechem. We therefore must determine that Dina's virtues were even greater than Leah's, so much that she had the ability to transform Esau, who was known as an evil person, and B, the ability to change a person for good is so admirable that it would have been worth subjecting Dina to marriage with Esau on the chance that she might have been able to change him for the good. Furthermore, the fact that Yaakov was actually punished for this teaches that this wasn't an issue of chance. Rather, it is clear that Dinah actually could have succeeded in changing Esau. Rashi states that this was merely a chance because Yaakov could not guarantee that she would succeed, since at the end, it would have depended on Esau's free choice.
Okay. So we actually see here, fascinating, that Dinah, yes, she got this outgoing trait from her mother, but she actually even like took it to the next level, right? Because she really could have changed Esav if she would have married him. And that's why Yaakov was punished, right? Because it wasn't like maybe she would have changed Esav.
How could you change somebody when your mother has cried herself, you know, to sleep over having to marry the very same person?
Tell me what you mean by that, right? Like, so like Leah.
Well, apparently, Leah was very upset that she might have to marry Esav.
Yeah.
She going to actually do that to her daughter?
Like, in other words, Leah didn't want to marry Esav.
And yeah, Dinah.
And there was a possibility that Leah could have changed Esav, and she didn't want that. But Dinah truly could have. But Dinah's, I mean, like, they're similar, but they're two different people. Meaning, just because Leah was like, I don't want to marry Esav, I mean, I don't know what would have happened there, right? We don't know. But, like, just the fact that Yaakov was like, oh, no, automatically no, without realizing the amazing potential his daughter has and what would have done was enough to show like that was like deserving of punishment. But what we want to take out of it also really is how powerful of a personality Dinah was. Like, that's really what we're learning from here.
Well, I'm sorry, I missed the last sentence.
Just that what I think this brings out is how powerful of a personality Dinah is, how special she is, right? Here we're saying like, well, maybe she really had other intentions when she was going out. Maybe she was looking for a little trouble. I'm like, she didn't just have the potential to change Esav. She really would have had she married him, which just shows how much of a tzaddikus and of a just a powerful personality that Dinah has.
Well, they still only give her a chance. It's not definite that she's going to change him.
So I'm saying we learn from the fact that it was not an issue of chance, because otherwise he wouldn't have been punished.
How was Yaakov punished?
By Dinah getting raped.
Whoa.
I know,
yeah,
right?
Really?
His daughter getting raped was his punishment.
Like the punishment fell on the wrong person.
I know. So that's like where I'm like, so that's where it comes also to understanding that this whole story, right? Like God's plan for the world, like it's going to happen anyways. In other words, we're told that Dinah was raped because Yaakov, like that Yaakov was punished, and it says Dinah fell into the hands of Shechem, but I mean, she was raped, right? Like, in other words, you thought this wouldn't be good for your daughter, but you were wrong. And so now your daughter falls into, you know, someone else's hands, so to speak. But this entire story was going to happen anyways, because like, that's how the world works, right? Like Hashem has a plan beyond, like there's a plan for it all regardless. I don't know if that made any sense.
On a Peshat level, one of the verses previous said that Yaakov, when he finds out, he does not react. He waits for his sons to come home.
Yeah.
So why didn't Yaakov, with anger, with righteousness, go out and tell his sons what happened so they could avenge their Dinah?
Yeah.
Why did he wait?
Okay, so Yaakov actually, he was angry at his sons for what they did. When they went and killed.
No. I'm talking about before they go in and do that at Shechem. When Yaakov first finds out that Dinah was raped.
Yeah.
He doesn't do anything. He waits for his sons to come in from the fields, and then he tells them.
Yeah.
I want to know why doesn't he go out and get the sons to tell them immediately? Why wait?
Wait, but why tell his sons?
Well, what, he has no reaction.
Yeah. Okay.
A horrible thing has happened to his child. And on the outward level, he's not reacting.
Yeah.
Well, he's, the sons are probably scattered because they do agricultural animal husbandry type work. They're probably in different fields. And the way to get them all together to talk to them is to wait until they all come back home.
Right. But the question is, a father hears something like this happen to his daughter. Why is he silent?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a couple things here. Number one, he knew it was his fault. He made a mistake. That's number one. But number two, he wasn't like, for Yaakov to have gone, let's say, and go just killed, it's kind of interesting. I mean, there's so many layers to this whole story, right? But for Yaakov to have gone and just like killed the whole town of Shechem would have been very undignified and improper. Shimon and Levi went and did it, and Yaakov was angry with them. Like, how could you do this? But really, I think that's what he wants. Like, that was the right thing to do, and Yaakov couldn't do it, and Yaakov couldn't condone it.
Okay.
So it's almost like, right? It's like, I can't actually like publicly stand behind something that's wrong, but it was right.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go back here for a second. So we have on the one side, Leah's eyes were tender. Leah was destined to marry Esav because of her innate ability to transform evil to good. So that's the bottom line here. What we learn about Leah's personality, that she had the ability to transform evil to good. Leah did not want this responsibility, and she cried. Over here, we have Dinah went out. Dinah inherited her mother's ability to transform evil to good, right? Leah married Yaakov, not Esav, and therefore she was absolved of that responsibility of this transforming evil to good, whereas Yaakov prevented Dinah from marrying Esav, preventing her from the opportunity to change him, transforming evil to good, right? So now what do we see? Even though Leah possessed the potential to transform good into evil, evil into good, it is not clear that she could have actually changed Esav, right? So Leah had it in potential. We don't know for a fact that she could or that she would have. Whereas that Yaakov was punished for preventing Dinah from fulfilling this potential proves that had Dinah been given the chance, she would have certainly succeeded.
Doesn't it say just the opposite on the previous page?
No.
It says that it would have been his choice.
Whose choice?
Esav's. And that there was a chance that Dinah could change him, but it was unlikely.
Oh, here.
Okay. Oh, okay. So in other words, the way Rashi words it, like the Rebbe takes this a step deeper, like commenting on Rashi. The reason Rashi, like in other words, the Rebbe says Dinah would have actually changed Esav. So then, if that's true, then why does Rashi say there's a chance she could have changed Esav? So the Rebbe explains, Rashi states it was a chance because Yaakov could not guarantee that she would succeed, since at the end, it would have depended on Esav's free choice. In other words, there's still free choice there. So Rashi words it that way, but Dinah really would have. Does that?
No, but
it's a little bit of a mind trip, these things. But the Rebbe's like explaining why Rashi words it this way, even though it would have been a different way. It's kind of like someone saying, if God knows everything, how is there free choice? Right? And it's like, we have free choice and God knows everything. And you're like, but how could that be? Because I'm choosing. And so how could God know? Then it's not a choice, right? So it's like, it's both. So Rashi says there's free choice. So there's a chance Dinah would have changed Esav because Esav ultimately has free choice. But he would have really been changed from Dinah. Like that's what would have occurred. Even though Esav has free choice. Is that clear?
And this
There is
is so,
as clear as that concept is usually.
Right.
It's really complicated because it implies a rolling future. What would have happened if this happened, this happened, this happened?
Right.
This also brings up a totally side issue, the philosophical issue of our sacred commandment to help someone else, or where does that go? Should she actually have married this evil guy, hung out with him in order to change him? I mean, that's a whole nother, subject that women in general, from studies of the Torah and religious studies and admonishments and charitable acts, that we have a tendency to also do, not necessarily to our complete benefit. And that's kind of a side sociological discussion.
Yeah, no, it's actually fascinating because we learn so many lessons from the people in the Torah, but then there's also so many things that's not like, oh, well, because she did it, I should do that, right? So how do you know which ones are like, because they do it, I should do it, and then, so it's like, and then versus like, that was for her, that was her mission, not mine.
Yeah, that wouldn't be the advice of too many marriage counselors to marry somebody.
Exactly. I would not recommend anyone to marry someone in order to change them.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Here we're talking about Leah and Dinah and Yaakov, right? They're just, these people are on a completely different caliber from us, 100%. We have so much to learn from them. We have abilities and powers from them. These are our foremothers, our forefathers, right? Who imbue abilities and strengths and different attributes into their children. But it doesn't mean, oh, if Dinah is going to marry someone to change him, it's going to work for me to marry someone to change them.
Dina, I want to get back to the part when he put her in the box crossing the river so Esav wouldn't see her.
Yeah.
Avram told Sarah, tell them you're my sister.
Yeah.
I think he did that twice.
Sarah was put in a box twice. Apparently men like to put women in boxes.
Well, but Sarah wasn't put in a box per se. He wanted her to lie to say,
No,
so he wouldn't
she was
get
put in a box. She was put in a box.
She was literally put in a box too?
I mean, what that looked like and what it was, I don't know. But yeah, she was put in a box twice.
Interesting that how that story is comes down through the generations.
Yeah, this is the third box we hear about.
On one hand, it looks like they're trying to protect the women in their lives, but they don't see, and these are men who, are on an intimate basis with Hashem, that they don't see the bigger picture. It's very
What's
interesting
fascinating is that
me.
In all three stories, their intentions were perfect, but ultimately
their intentions were good.
Yeah.
Right.
And ultimately it almost wasn't the right thing, but it was meant to happen that way anyways. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we also learn about all the tzaddikim and the great people in Torah and everything that God kind of judges them way more harshly, right, than he would any of us. What God would expect of a Moses is different than what God would expect from me and you, right? So Moses hit a rock instead of spoke to the rock, right? And for that, he couldn't go into the land of Israel. None of us would be expected to talk to a rock or, right? In other words, that's not a crime. Moses didn't do anything wrong. It's just that for someone of his caliber, how in tune he was with God, and what he knew, or whatever. That's a whole nother story. But right, he knew that wasn't the right thing, or for him it wasn't the right thing. So that's another thing we can't apply to ourselves. What God expects of people of this caliber, we can't apply that to ourselves either, necessarily. Depends what. Okay. So, okay, I'll read that. Actually, Rita, do you want to read this for us?
So according to Rashi's commentary on that verse, we can say that Rashi's intention here regarding Dinah's going out is to bring out her virtues. That since Dinah had the potential within her to change even Esau the wicked for the better, it is understood that the fact that Dinah went out to see the girls of the land was not, heaven forbid, an undesirable act. On the contrary, it was to the girls of the land in order to change them for good. That is what Rashi is teaching us when stating that because of her going out, she was called the daughter of Leah, since she too was in the habit of going out. Dinah's amazing ability to go out and influence the girls of the land comes from her mother, as she also went out in this manner. The fact that Rashi specifies the daughter of Leah and not the daughter of Yaakov is because Dinah specifically inherited this ability from Leah and not from Yaakov, who hid her from Esau and suppressed her ability to fulfill her potential and was subsequently punished for that, as we mentioned above.
Okay. So back to Rashi's commentary, right? Rashi said, and not the daughter of Jacob. However, because of her going out to influence the girls of the land to be better people, right? Like that's the subtext of it. She was called the daughter of Leah, since she, Leah, too, was in the habit of going out to influence others for good, as it is said, and Leah came forth toward him. And concerning her, we have the proverb, like mother, like daughter. Okay? So now we see that Rashi was really commenting a positive thing about Dinah and about Leah in both instances.
This proverb, is it from the Torah, or is it just a modern proverb based on this Torah Parsha?
Well, it's so interesting because...
Or is this from Proverbs?
Yeah, just the word proverb is a little confusing.
Like, it's in Rashi.
Is it in the Jewish Proverbs?
Yeah. So that's why I'm like, when did it become like mother, like daughter? Like, when did that become
normative?
Like, I don't know.
Like
yeah,
the
exactly.
vernacular.
You could Google it, find out but it originates from right here in the Torah. Okay. So what do we still need to explain? Let's see, Robin, do you want to read that for us?
Yes. We still need to explain Dinah's going out is not similar to Leah's going out, which was that she desired to increase the tribes, being that through her the tribes were born to Yaakov. Well, Dinah's going out was in order to help the girls of the land. What is the connection between the ability to go out and change Esav for the better and influence the girls of the land to Leah, whose purpose for going out was to give birth to the tribes? Indeed, Rashi points out earlier that Leah's eyes were sensitive because she expected to fall into Esav's lot, and she wept because everyone was saying, Rivka has 2 sons and Lavan has 2 daughters, the older daughter for the older son and the younger daughter for the younger son. This tells us that she did not want to fall into Esav's lot, even though it was within her ability to change him for the better.
Okay. Oh, that's doubled. I apologize. Okay, question. So why is Dinah's and she went out to see the girls of the land, right? That's her outgoingness or going out, being compared to Leah's and she went out to greet Jacob. What is the connection between those, like what that specific connection? Okay, so the explanation for this, according to the Hasidic interpretation, is, let's see. Vivian, do you want to read that for us?
Okay, so even though all 3 patriarchs, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, are called fathers because each of them passed down their attributes as an inheritance to each and every Jew, there is an advantage in the connection the Jewish people have with Yaakov specifically. Since all of Yaakov's offspring became the Jewish nation, unlike Abraham and Yitzhak, who each bore a son that did not become a father of the Jewish nation. So although we are taught that Jewish people inherit our spiritual levels from the 3 patriarchs, those 3 spiritual levels were further divided into 12 more specific levels through the 12 tribes, Yaakov's sons. And these 12 levels found within the 12 tribes represent the 12 spiritual levels of godly service found within all Jews.
Okay, so we get, like, one premise over here is, like, we get, like I said, spiritual capacities from the patriarchs and the matriarchs, all right? So they're not just like figures in history. They are extremely righteous people, but they're like the parents of the Jewish nation who pass down spiritual genetics to us of what we can accomplish and things like that, right? So we have Avraham. Does someone have a question? No? Okay. So we have Avraham, who had Yishmael and Isaac, right? Isaac is righteous. Yishmael turns out to be otherwise. Yitzchak has Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov is righteous. Esav turns out to be otherwise. Yaakov has righteous, like he was known as like mitaso shlema. His bed was complete. In other words, his offspring, right, were all righteous. Did I just double this again? No. Okay, here. So let's see. Andrea, do you want to read this?
So although we are taught that Jewish people inherit our spiritual levels from these three patriarchs, those three spiritual levels were further divided into 12 more specific levels through the 12 tribes, Yaakov's sons. And these 12 levels found within the 12 tribes represent the 12 spiritual levels of godly service found within all Jews. We can presume that even though the 12 avenues of spiritual service found within the tribes were inherited from the patriarchs, the nation of Israel was, in actuality, built by the matriarchs, and more specifically, Yaakov's 4 wives, Rachel, Leah, Bilhah, and Zilpah.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, we find that even though the initial step in creating a child includes the father, it is through spending 9 months in the mother's womb that the potential actually becomes a child. We therefore find that each of the tribes were named by Rachel and Leah, being that a name not only reflects on the person being named, but also on the giver of the name, and not by Yaakov, as explained at length elsewhere.
Okay.
Okay.
So what do we have? We inherit our potential for spirituality from the three patriarchs, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, but we inherit our method of service, and with it, the ability to actualize that potential from Rachel and Leah. Okay? So whereas we just learned that there are 12 avenues of service found among the Jewish people, these are the more detailed levels of service that can really be divided into 2 categories, right? There's the tzaddikim, the perfectly righteous, and then there's the Baal Tshuva, which is, okay, I guess English is the penitent, but it means like the master of return, right? A Baal is like the owner, like you've owned it, you're the master of it. And teshuva really means to return, even though it's commonly translated as repent, it really means return. So it's known that the service of teshuva does not only require one to sin and deviate from the correct path, it in itself is a distinctive form of service and applies also to righteous people. Because if you're returning, you could just like constantly get closer and closer to your source. The service of the tzaddik exclusively involves the world of holiness, and it's kind of like just continuing in the realm of holiness by living by the Torah and fulfilling mitzvot, while the service of the Baal Teshuvah is focused on the task of transforming evil to good, and in more general terms, to transform the mundane to holy. In other words, all of us, we have the service of the Baal Teshuvah, which is like to constantly be engaging in this world and working to transform this world and to take mundane things and to make them holy and all of that. So, right, so here we have the service of the tzaddik involves only the world of holiness. There's no reason to go out and to be involved in the mundane, right? The service of the Baal Teshuvah is to transform the mundane to holy, and that does require going out. That does require being involved in the mundane. So, here, let's see. Who else wants to read? Ann Meisner, do you want to read this?
Perhaps we can determine that the source of this division of style of service found within the tribes, that the primary service of Leah's sons was that of teshuvah, penitence, and that of Joseph and Benjamin, Rachel's sons, were perfectly righteous, is really the mother's, Rachel and Leah, since Leah related to the service of the Baal Teshuvah and Rachel to the service of the Tzaddik. According to this, we can explain, according to the Hasidic interpretation, the verse, and Leah's eyes were tender, but Rachel had beautiful features and a beautiful complexion. Rachel represented the service of the Tzaddik, which is beautiful in feature and complexion, without any blemishes or shortfalls, while Leah's tender eyes, caused by her tears, represent the service of the Baal Teshuvah, since tears represent the service of Teshuvah.
Okay, now we're talking, right, more about the divine service behind this, right? So we have Rachel, who we said, just talking about her physical features, right? That Rachel was beautiful of complexion, and so her service represented that of a tzaddik, of a righteous person. Whereas Leah, right, we spoke about how her eyes were puffy and red and or tender, right? The tears, the idea of the service of the Baal Teshuvah, the service of returning and of change, right? And that is reflected then also in their children. So Leah, her eyes were tender. Tears represent the idea of repentance, the service of the Baal Teshuvah. And Rachel, beautiful features, beautiful complexion, represents the perfection in the service of the tzaddik. So now comes to Dinah. Dinah, the daughter of Leah, went out. Dinah not only inherited the potential to go out and to transform evil to good, which is the service of the Baal Teshuvah, she actually possessed a greater ability to accomplish this than her mother did. Okay. Okay. So it's a little bit like we've touched on all this before, but I think it'll be good to continue this. So Nancy, do you want to read this part?
Sure. This is the inner meaning of the saying that everyone said. Rivka has 2 sons and Lavan has 2 daughters. The older daughter for the older son and the younger daughter for the younger son. That Leah's method of spiritual service was that of the Baal Teshuvah, and she therefore possessed the ability to change Isaac for the better, while Rachel, whose service was that of the Tzaddik, would not have been able to do so. This is what Rashi is telling us in his commentary on the verse, quote, and Dinah, the daughter of Leah, went out, unquote. The tendency to, quote, go out, unquote, was inherited from her mother, Leah, whose method of service was to, quote, go out, unquote, and to turn evil into good. This ability, however, was not obvious to Leah, and she therefore did not want to fall into Isaac's lot. However, when the potential was passed down to her children, it was more pronounced and able to be actualized.
Right. So even from Yaakov and Esav, Yaakov was a complete tzaddik, and Esav had the potential to be a Baal Teshuvah, right? So like when you go back to the story, and I don't want to go too much into that because we're focusing on a different one, but where Isaac, like Yitzchak, he wanted to give the blessings to Esav, and he like really thought that Esav was deserving of being the firstborn and everything. And then you could ask, like, was Yitzchak really tricked by his own son Esav? Like Rachel was the one who saw Yaakov and realized that Yaakov should be it. And Yitzchak, like, was he truly tricked by his own son and thinking that his son was righteous? But no, he saw the potential in Esav, and he thought Esav had the potential to be a Baal Teshuvah. Esav had the potential to become someone great. He failed miserably. He didn't reach his potential, right? He was an idol worshiper. He was a murderer. He was not a good person. But Isaac was hoping for that potential to be actualized. Whereas, sorry, not Rachel, Rivka, his wife Rivka, saw that Yaakov was really the tzaddik, but really the one that was going to actualize his own potential. So it's kind of like the same thing here, where Leah had this potential, but she didn't, it wasn't obvious to her and she didn't want it. But Dinah had it even more, and she did want it. Dinah did want to actualize that potential that she had to transform negative to positive, evil to good. So this story teaches us a significant lesson to all Jewish women. Here's where it comes. What does this mean for you and I today, right? We're not the Dinas and we're not the Rachels and the Leahs and all of that, but there's clearly a very, very, very strong message for us. So even though a woman is tasked with building the home, and we're known as all women, we are the Akeret Habayit, the foundations of our home, the pillars of our home. And as such, it is said that all the glory of the king's daughter is within. And this is a verse, it's also in Tehillim, and it refers to all Jewish women, right? Meaning if God is our king, we are daughters, which would make us all princesses. And it's saying that like the idea of us, this verse also is used very much in connection to tzniut, to tznius, which is modesty, right? This idea that we do have an inward, that our focus is more inward. Since building a Jewish home requires one to focus inward, it is specifically women that possess the unique ability to affect those outside the home. So in other words, we have this duality. We have this idea where we are building our homes, we focus inwards, our beauty, our glory is what's within us, right? This like concept of modesty. At the same time, we have this unique ability to affect people outside of our homes. So it's their duty that while staying, or ours, it's our duty that while staying true to Torah values, we take the ability that we were blessed with. I'm kind of turning this into us, but okay. They take the abilities that they were blessed with, those same abilities that enable them to build successful homes and use them to teach others and change the world for the better. So it's exactly these qualities of being more inward, of being more modest, perhaps more private. Those exact abilities are what allow us to engage in the world, affect people around us, change the world around us, and not compromise on our values. Okay, and we learn this specifically from Dinah and from Leah, who were outgoing. Leah and Dinah teach us, although we may encounter great resistance, it is our duty as Jewish women to teach, inspire, and affect others in a positive manner, to do all we can, to do all we can to make this world a better place and never to rest so long as there is work to be done. And I think
this is exhausting.
So this takes us to the end of the lesson, but really what this starts is a farbringen, the idea of how do we combine these two, right? Like Jolie said, it's exhausting. And you know what? I am constantly talking to my daughter, Hadassah, who is 10. And so she's exactly that age, right? That like preteen, entering teen, stage. And she is extremely outgoing, extremely, right? And we're constantly in talks about the balance between these two, right? Like how do we be out there and outgoing and, in the world, and at the same time retain that dignity, that privacy, that modesty, that inwardness, right? It's like we are tasked with the duality and we are promised that we can do both because we get that from Dinah and Leah. They embodied both, and especially Dinah from this week's Torah portion, the ability to do both.
I have to say, Adina, that to us, you have that ability, and you're our mentor. You are our model.
Thank you, Barbara. That's so nice. I mean,
It's
that's what
true.
I aspire to. And I think that is what we talk about constantly. Now I'm bringing it to us in Torah Tea as a conversation, but even, amongst the Chabad Rebbetzins, amongst what we talk about with our daughters, right? Because that is the duality that we hold, which is, no, we're not going to live in Williamsburg and live in, Bnei Brak and Mea Sharim and in places, right, where we're going to stay secluded and say like, no, let's stay inward. Let's not engage with the world because we don't want to compromise our modesty and our privacy and our dignity and our, being the daughter of a king, right? We're like, we want that and out there, outgoing with the world, like wanting to influence, wanting to share, right? So it's like, we're going to hold both. And in order to do that, you have to constantly be talking about how to do that, right? Because sometimes you got to do a little bit more of this and a little bit more of this. And am I creating the balance, right? As soon as you're doing what it's easy to go extreme in one direction. That's not hard. What's hard is to keep a balance to consistently make sure I'm balanced. I'm doing some of this, I'm doing some of this. Is it too much of this? Do I need to go back a little here? Is this okay? Is this, you know? And so that is what requires constant Farbringen, constant discussion, constant checking in with mentors, constantly reevaluating ourselves. And I think it's fascinating. I think it's really fascinating to you know, my friend, maybe some of you know her, Bracha Leeds in Berkeley. She's the Chabad Rebbetzin on campus in Berkeley. She also runs the mikveh there. And this is just randomly, it just came to mind right now. I remember her saying to me, you know, because in campus, when you're on campus, Chabad Rabbi or Rebbetzin, there's also other things that maybe would come up that wouldn't come up in maybe a community setting, you know, like when you're dealing with college students. And so I guess like one of the things she one time said is like, you know, they have like maybe 150 students pre-COVID on a Friday night, they'll have 150 students over for a Shabbat dinner. And of course, a Shabbat dinner with campus students is very different than a community Shabbat dinner.
I've been to one.
Sorry, Ann?
I've been to one at Cal Poly with Matt. It
Oh,
was
nice.
with all the kids. Yeah.
All the kids. So she talked about how she would like stand on a chair to make her announcements, like, okay, everyone, we're going to sing this, you know, and then I don't know if someone mentioned it to her or she just started thinking about it. And she decided to like ask a Rav, like, is it okay that, you know, like she's like, my husband's actually the one that keeps the meal running, but I'm the one who like, you know, like food coming in and out of the kitchen. And I'm the one who like stands on a chair and makes the announcements. And the Rav asked her, like, do you have to stand on a chair? Is that necessary for you to make your announcements? You know? And that's just like a tiny little sensitivity, a little thought, you know, and he wasn't saying it's not okay to, but you know, maybe it's a little bit more refined, a little bit more dignified to not have that like camp counselor presence as you're making your announcements, you know? And again, I'm not saying that that's for everybody. It's not right or wrong. We're talking about, again, that sensitivity, that balance of like, I can be out there. I can use my outgoing personality. I can influence, I can impact. And at the same time, I want to be, you know, I want to be refined. I want to be a Jewish daughter. I want to be focused inward. I want to think about my home and building my home, right? And how do we do the two? So I just want to leave you all of that with something to just think about and to ponder and to, because it's an ongoing thing constantly in our lives. And that's really what we learn from this week's Torah portion and from Dina. And she actually encapsulated that to the highest degree.
Yeah, it's a fantastic lesson. Andrea, I'm sorry, I saw you raise your hand. I just want to ask a real quick question. Usually we just put our money in the little cup in the middle of the table over the delicious pastries that you brought us. But could you just remind me how we pay for this session? I know it's a little bit, you know, not quite spiritual to talk about it, but.
I believe you could go to jewishnovato.com/classes.
Okay.
And there's like for all the lectures and all the classes, and you could put it there. I also just want everyone to know it's suggested, and I wouldn't want anyone to not come to a Torah class. So it's, you know, like if you're like, oh, I don't, you know, not able to donate or whatever. So just come no matter what. And if anyone would like to give anything, you can do it jewishnovato.com/classes. There's a page there.
Okay. And how many sessions are we having?
We're going to do three for now, and then maybe we'll continue again in January, like after the winter break. So we'll do 3 now.
Thank you so much. It was just wonderful.
My absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
I just
Excellent.
wanted to say one more comment.